Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com, and here in our next video on Masonite 4, what we're going to do is we're going to start a new project. And this project we're going to create like a full stack to-dos. And just so you know what I mean when I say full stack versus like an API, there's generally two main architectures for how you build your app, especially in the early days if you're a developer. The first one is a full stack website. And so in that case, what happens is your backend, meaning the piece that kind of handles your database and your models and your routing, that's all done along with your front end, which is the visual like HTML pages that people see. And the way it's done is through templating. So we've been doing this through Jinja templating. So up to this point, you've been seeing Masonite 4 in the sort of full stack framework mode. A little bit later on, we'll do APIs where instead of your backend, so instead of Masonite handling all the HTML and all that stuff, it'll only handle one thing, delivering the data via JSON. Okay, but we'll get to that a little bit later on. What I want to do now, because Masonite really has superb features for when you're building a full stack website, although you can build APIs, but yeah, it's again very much designed like Laravel on Rails, which really caters to that full stack design setup. And basically it has some really nice ability to scaffold out authentication in that mold. So what we're going to do is create a new project and show you how you would basically build the to-do list that we built before, but using authentication. So that way like different users can log in and have their own to-dos. And you'll find that it's actually pretty straightforward. Okay, and we'll kind of talk about how it all works too. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cd back up into my main folder out of project 1, and I'm going to make a new folder, make dir project 2. Then I'm going to cd into that folder, project 2, and again my Masonite virtual environment is still on as it's been on this whole video series. Okay, cd into project 2, and then what I'm going to do in here is I am going to do Python. I think it's not just craft start this time. So let me go back to the docs. And this is why it's always important to always have the docs nearby. We did all that. Python craft start, project start. Okay, there we go. So Python, we'll just do project start dot here in project 2. Okay, and that created the application. As we see here, there's all my stuff. And right out of the box, again, it comes with a bunch of, it already has like a user model. Oh, wait, this is still project 1. Let's go back to project 2 here. So if we go right here, app. And then I go into models. You'll see that there's already this user model. And the user model already has a user migration. So this stuff is built right out of the gate. So there's a password reset table that's used to handle password resets. It's kind of already set up for you, so there's no reason to play with it unless you want to change how it works. And then here's like the user. So basically every user has an ID, a name, an email, a password, a second password, remember token, a phone number. And again, these fields are nullable. They don't have to have them. Verified at. So it's kind of all there, so that way you don't have to actually set it up. Now, if I go a step further, and if I do Python craft auth, what this will do is also add even more. So watch what happens. Do Python craft auth, and then now not only do I have the model and the migration for users, but now I actually have all the templates I need for users. Okay, so I go over here, and like in my templates, see now there's this folder called auth that wasn't there before, and now there's all these folders. So there's a folder for like the sign up page, which is register. Okay, now there's an auth, so it has its own base if you want to use it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that all these pages use the same sort of base template. So I'm going to just use the base from the previous folder. So I'm just going to change all these to base. So that way we only have to edit one layout. Cool. Okay, then that's fine. But basically, you have the change password page, the home page, login page, password page, register page, all set up for you already. So you can customize them to your liking. Yeah, and we'll get to that in a moment. But you see, like, all that stuff is set up for you. So the only thing left for us to set up, so if you want to see like exactly the step-by-step setup, is we head over to here in the documentation, see there's authentication and authorization. So right now we're dealing with authentication, the ability to like log into the website. Authorization, which we'll tackle next, will be just sort of the idea that, hey, you know, I've logged in. Now the website needs to check, hey, are you logged in, before it just lets you do whatever you want. Okay, because just because I filled out the form and it verified that my password match doesn't mean the whole website just magically understands that I'm logged in. So there has to be a check as I do things that says, okay, did they log in? Did they log in? That's authorization. So I go to authentication and basically see we did that. We did the Python craft auth. Now what we want to do is add the routes. So instead of us having to type all these routes one by one, there is a function that makes this a lot easier called routes. Okay. And the way this works is we're going to head over to our routes. So again, that's in the routes folder, web.py. I'm going to import. So from Masonite.authentication, I'm going to import auth. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to say routes, because here again, this is the routes array. So this is the array of routes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add to that array auth.routes. Because what this function does is it returns an array of routes. So essentially it's like this, but just an array of them. And then with this, the plus equal signs will do, when I do that with two lists or arrays, it'll concatenate them together. So I'm just basically creating one big array. So I'm adding all the routes that this function generates, because it's built into Masonite, and adding them to this list right here. Okay, so creating one big list of routes. So that's all that's happening here. This is creating the auth routes. And again, I can check and make sure that that's the case by doing craft Python craft routes, I think it is. Routes list. Okay. Oh, am I not in the right folder? No, I am in the right folder. Must be greater than 0. Do I have more than? Okay. Okay, well, we'll try it again in a second. Okay, so again, there's my routes. And it's connected to an auth controller that's kind of invisible. Like, you don't see the controller. It's already built in. So if you want to know what those routes are, they're here in the documentation as well. So if I go over here to authentication, here's the different routes. So like this, it creates all these following routes, like /login, /home, /register, password reset, change password. And again, it gives you all the appropriate pages for that. And they work. So that part's pretty straightforward. So now, like, literally, if I start off, all I have to do is run the migration for the user model. So I can do Python craft migrate, because that'll create the user table. And our user model will let us handle that. So basically what's going to happen here is that here is our user model, again, which has authenticates. So this authenticates mixin, which are like these like mixin classes. They're classes you're inheriting from partially. What it's doing is it's giving it the ability to be to track whether to use that model to track whether the user is logged in or not. And then here, fillable just means like, hey, can we submit this via a form? So like, hey, I'm going to be able to fill these fields out and submit them as a form, and then pass those to. So if I were to pass like the request body into a create function, these fields can just be kind of handled that way. Hidden, meaning like this field is going to be encrypted, so it'll use bcrypt to encrypt this particular field. And then this auth property just means like, hey, when it comes to authentication and we want to check, hey, is this user match, which field is the unique field that we should match it up against? So in this case, every user has to have a unique email. So we're going to check to see, hey, is there when they're logged in, we're going to see if their email matches. That's going to be sort of the crux. You could change it to username or whatever you'd like, but that's just, again, how it is set up out of the gate. So again, technically now it should be working. I should be able to log in theoretically. So if I go to Python craft serve, Python craft serve, and then I go over here. If I go to localhost /login, actually /register, okay, see now I can create a new account. And see, I didn't have to make this page. I could edit the page, but it's already set, kind of set for me to go. So I can just be like, okay, my name is Alex Merced, and my email is going to be alex@alexmerced.com, and my password we'll say is cheese. Actually, it actually requires you to do special characters. You could change the validations, but right now it's set to validate in a particular way to have a very safe password. So let's just do A. Well, actually, let's do capital A, exclamation point, and then the number 1 and the number 1. So it's like, because you need to have a uppercase, a special character, and a number to match. Then I need to put the second password. So A, exclamation, 1. Okay, and then it takes me to the this home page. So I would then edit the home page, which is again in our templates. Okay, here in auth. Okay, which we'll deal with later on. Cool. Okay. Now that's all fun and good. And now if I want to log in, I would click on, I'd go to /login. Okay, and then this is where I would log in, and I would type in alexmerced@alexmerced.com as the email, then A, exclamation, 1. And see, that also takes me to the home page. So when I sign up and when I log in, it'll take me to the home page because it automatically logs you in when you sign up. So wonderful. Okay, that's essentially, that works out of the gate. Now, right now, you may not see that, like, okay, that's great. How do I know that it's working? Well, if I go over here to cookies, okay, we'll see here there's several different cookies. Like there's a session ID, and that's what's going to be using to kind of track your username and whatnot, or like that you're logged in. And yeah, that's going to be, that's what that's for. Because it'll, based on the session ID, it'll then locate the corresponding login session in the server. So that's set up. Now we just need to kind of do some other things. So let's just show, like, how can we verify that you are logged in? Okay, and I forget, does it create a logout route? Do we have a route for logging out? No. Well, I'm sure we can find a way to handle that. Okay. But let's create a quick route. So I'm just going to use the welcome controller that just comes out of the gate. So here we go, controllers. Okay, there's the auth controller. Okay, oh, so all the controllers are here. So if we want to edit it, we can edit what's going on here. So if you want to edit what any of these different routes are doing, all the controllers are there. Okay, very cool. I didn't notice that before. So you can kind of edit how all those things are handled. But also I want to go to the welcome controller, and what I want to do is we're going to add another route and say def, user, and we're going to say self what I'm going to do is I'm going to do dependency injection on all this stuff. So let me just go bring everything in from Masonite .requests, import request from Masonite .auth, import, I think it's authentication, import auth from Masonite .response, import response. Okay, and I think we got everything we would need, at least everything I know off the top of my head. So then we'll just create our constructor function, def init, and then we'll use dependency injection to kind of bring everything in. So self, and then we're going to say view request auth and response. Just this way we don't have to keep bringing these up every single time, so I can get rid of this now. This will be self.view.render right there, so that way it doesn't complain. Okay. And then we'll just assign these. So self.view equals view, self.request equals request, self.auth equals auth, and self.response equals response. Okay, so now I have those things there, and I can use those things in my further controller actions. Nice. Okay, and now what I can do is if I'll do an if, and we're going to say if self.auth. Actually, first we want to grab the user, so we're going to say user equals self.auth dot. It should be like something called like authenticated user. Yeah, I think it's just user. So that'll grab the. Oh, that's going to log out the current authenticated user. I don't want to do that. What's the function for grabbing the current user? Report auth. We did that. Where's the one I'm looking for? Here we go. Yeah, it's just auth.user. Okay, you can get the current authenticated user. Okay. So that'll grab the user, and then we're going to say check, hey, is their user logged in? Because if there is no user logged in, it'll return none. So we're going to say if if user equals none, then what we'll do is we'll redirect them. Response.redirect, and then we'll redirect them. Oh no, self.response. Self.response.redirect, and we would redirect them back to /login. Okay. Else, then they would be logged in. Then what we're going to do is I want to return the user. So we can see that we'll get the user back as JSON. Because I'm just returning the user object, so then it just gives that to me as JSON. And now we just need to attach that to a route. Okay. So let me go head over to my routes. And I'm going to add a route. We'll just say route.get/user check. So we're just checking to see, hey, did the user log in? And then the second argument will be welcome controller at, and what do we call it? User. So at user. Okay, so yeah, so let's just try that out. So right now I should be logged in. So if I go to /user check, see, I get back the user. So see, I can tell that I'm logged in. Okay, now if I were to delete this session ID, okay, so I'm going to delete the session ID token over here. And again, I get to this by getting the dev tools. You can always get to this kind of console panel by just right-clicking inspect. Okay, I right-click here. I'm going to delete this cookie, the session ID cookie. I'll refresh the page. Let's do a refresh. Okay, maybe that's not the cookie I was thinking it was. So let's see here, which cookie? Oh no, I think it's going to be this, the token cookie. So let me delete the token. Now if I hit refresh, yeah, and see now I'm logged out. Okay, although our if did not work. So it still tried to send me the user, but the user just equals false. So we need to change the code a little bit. So let's try that. Let's just rearrange that a little bit so we get the right desired effect. Where is it? Welcome controller. So let's just say if user, because if it returns false, so that means user actually equals false, not none. Okay, so then user, if user's false, or actually if you want to say it like if not user. Oh, can't do that here. Okay. If user is true, so let's actually change it the other way around. Actually, let's just do if user equals false. Let's be explicit. There we go. Now, if I refresh this page and see it redirect me to the login page. So now, when I'm logged in, it's going to send me out. There's going to be easier ways to do this, but again, right here at this basic level, I can already go into any route, check if the user's logged in, and I have this user object. I have access to all those users' properties. So if I log in, okay, and I go back to user check, see, I have access to the ID, name, email, password. So I can start, that's going to allow me to start being able to create the relationship between like, hey, this to-do belongs to this user, because I'll have the user data in that variable, and I can now add that to what I create in the database. So we'll kind of see that in the next video. But yeah, so this video, so technically you can already do basic authorization just through this approach right here, where you just get the user, check if the user is false or not, redirect them if it is, and else, do whatever you're going to do in that page. So that way, users don't do things that where they're supposed to be logged in. Okay. There are more sophisticated ways where you can kind of try to do that sort of authorization. So if you look in here, we go to the authorization section. You can register these tools called gates. This is this looks a little bit more complicated. So I mean, in these early stages, it may be easier just to do these if statements, just so you kind of get the idea of what it's doing. Again, checking, hey, is there a user? And you get comfortable with setting up routes that way, and then maybe take a look at this authorizing, so you can use these guards, which just let you run a function. You could also create middleware that does the same thing, and then that way you don't have to do the check by, you can do the check, you can write one middleware and it just does the check every time. And then later on, we can do APIs. If you go to here, API development, it'll give you some different information about how to handle authorization there. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to that point. Okay, so that's essentially how to set up just the basic login, log out, and how it works here in Masonite. Now in the next one, we'll create a model, the to-do model, and we will try to associate it with the users. That way, if you log in under different users, you get a different list of to-dos. Okay, so I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a great day and enjoy.